Showbiz Today, weekdays 5:30 Eastern on CNN.
The plane carrying Secretary Brown and his delegation, including a number of your colleagues, business leaders, and members of the United States military, went down today near Dubrovnik in Croatia. We do not know for sure what happened there.
The president delivers a guarded tribute to Commerce Secretary Ron Brown as we hear unconfirmed reports of a survivor in the plane's wreckage. That is one of two major stories we are following. Hello, welcome to Early Prime. I'm Natalie Allen.
And I'm Lou Waters. The other major story is that federal authorities believe they have identified the so-called Unabomber. More on that in just a moment. First, a member of the Clinton cabinet, Commerce Secretary Ron Brown, is missing in a plane crash in the Balkans. White House officials say 4 bodies have been recovered from a crash site in Croatia, all unidentified. Now the Pentagon says it has no confirmed reports of fatalities or survivors. A Pentagon official cites an unconfirmed report of one possible survivor at the crash site. Earlier, the President and First Lady, both clearly shaken, went to the home of Ron Brown in Washington to visit with Ron Brown's wife, Alma, and Mr. Brown's children. Mr. Clinton later spoke with employees at the Commerce Department. More on that in just a moment. Ron Brown was on an official visit to drum up business for economic redevelopment in the former Yugoslavia. In addition to Brown, several high-level U.S. business executives were aboard the plane. The Pentagon says a total of 33 people, 27 passengers, 6 crew, were aboard the Air Force T-43A. Earlier, an unnamed Pentagon official put the chances of anyone surviving the crash at slim to none. But as we just told you, a Pentagon source tells us that there is an unconfirmed report of one survivor. The plane, again, a T-43, a military version of the Boeing 737. It flew this morning from the Bosnian town of Tuzla in northeast Bosnia. It was to take the Brown delegation to the Croatian coastal town of Dubrovnik on the Adriatic. U.S. officials tell CNN the plane crashed into a mountain on the Croatian coast. Earlier reports indicated the wreckage fell into the ocean. The Pentagon now says no wreckage has been found in the water. The officials say the weather at the time of the crash was very bad. There is no indication of any hostile activity in that area which might have resulted in the plane crash. U.S., French, and Croatian military teams launched search and rescue operations over land and water. The Pentagon says Croatian teams have reached the crash site. An official says U.S. teams are on the way. He says bad weather prevented a landing by rescue teams earlier at the site.
For the very latest now on this story from the White House, we're joined from there by CNN's Jill Doherty. Jill?
Well, Natalie, as soon as President Clinton did get word that the crash had occurred, he canceled his schedule for the day, and then he telephoned Mrs. Brown, spoke with her by telephone, and then later went to her house, spending about 45 minutes with the family. After that, he headed for the Commerce Department, where he delivered some heartfelt messages to the employees there, having high praise for Ron Brown as one of the best advisors he had ever had.
Ron Brown walked and ran and flew through life. And he was a magnificent life force. And those of us who loved him will always be grateful for his friendship and his warmth. But every American should be grateful that at a very difficult moment in our nation's history, he made this Commerce Department what it was meant to be, an instrument for realizing the potential of every American.
And the president also recalled a moment in that meeting earlier that day, this morning, with Mrs. Brown and made mention of a particular incident when they were speaking. Here's what he said.
Before I left, I asked Alma, I said, Alma, what do you want me to say when I go to the Commerce Department? She said, tell them Ron was proud of them, that he liked them, that he believed in them, and that he fought for the Commerce Department, and tell them that you're going to do that now, which I thought was an incredible thing.
In that meeting, the speech over at the Commerce Department, the president did stress that it is not clear yet precisely what did happen, and the White House has repeatedly said that there are many facts that have to be learned before the full story is known. But the president did have a chance to talk with the family, obviously a very heartfelt moment with them, and a personal tragedy that is being felt very deeply here at the White House. Lou?
Jill Doherty, thanks.
The crash investigation, as has been verified by the Pentagon, is complicated by difficult terrain, bad weather, and numerous agencies all seeking answers. The Pentagon is expected to take the lead in the investigation. Again, the downed aircraft is a T-43A. That's the military version of a Boeing 737. The plane was based at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. CNN's Ralph Begleiter joins us now live from Washington with the latest on the crash investigation. Ralph?
Lou, it has been 9 hours since the plane hit the mountain south of Dubrovnik Airport, and there are many questions unanswered that were unanswered at the time of the crash. They remain that way at this point. But the Pentagon says the key facts are that at this point there is no evidence of any hostile fire having been applied to the plane. There's no evidence of any kind of explosion on the plane. The Pentagon indicates that at this point it looks like a weather incident, a weather-related incident. The Pentagon confirms there were 33 people aboard the plane, 27 passengers, plus 6 members of the crew. The best information at the moment about whether or not there were any survivors appears to be coming from Croatian rescue teams, which of course were able to reach the scene of the crash before anyone else. And a Dubrovnik doctor is quoted as having said that there is one woman survivor, but Pentagon General Howell Estes was unable to confirm that.
The crash site has been reached by Croatian police, and I've just received word that there's also a Croatian doctor on the scene. U.S. forces are striving to get to the scene. In fact, at this minute, may be at the scene. There are helicopters on the ground at Dubrovnik's airport, U.S. helicopters that held about 50 U.S. personnel. Initially, they made an attempt to land at the crash site, but because of the weather, were unable to do that. And so they are, as rapidly as possible, working their way up to where the crash site is. This is important because there have been unconfirmed by anybody in the U.S. side reports that there have been some casualties on the ground, obviously, but there are unconfirmed, and I want to stress, unconfirmed reports of a survivor on the ground.
The Pentagon says American, French, and Croatian planes and ships and ground teams are all involved in the rescue effort. The United States is unable to confirm at this point actually unable to confirm that Commerce Secretary Ron Brown, in fact, has perished on the plane, nor is anyone in official capacity indicating who else exactly was on the plane. But there were 27 people aboard. That should be most of the Ron Brown delegation, which was in the area in Bosnia yesterday and today in Croatia for the purpose of facilitating economic development in the Balkans to follow on the peace agreement that was signed late last year. These are pictures of Brown in Tuzla yesterday, where he was meeting with U.S. troops there, and both President Clinton and the Commerce Secretary have linked their economic development mission to the peace process, which resulted in the agreement that is even now being enforced. U.S. officials hope that through missions like the one that Ron Brown and his team were on, the Balkans would be rebuilt into a viable economic state, persuading the people not to return to war. Lou?
Ralph Begleiter in Washington. Natalie.
The other major story we're following today concerns the Unabomber. CNN has learned that federal officials have identified a suspect in the Unabomber case, and at this time, a search warrant raid is underway in Lincoln, Montana. However, the Unabomber himself is not believed to be at the site of the search. He is identified as a Harvard graduate living in the area. Officials reportedly acted on a tip from the man's family, and a recent search of the suspect's family home near Chicago produced materials linking him to a series of mail bombings. The investigation is apparently unrelated to the ongoing FBI standoff with the Free Men near Brusette, Montana. Agents have been looking for the so-called Unabomber for 18 years. His bombings have killed 3 people, injured 23 others. The most recent attack was last April when a timber industry executive was killed in Sacramento, California. We'll keep you posted on any further developments. And Early Prime continues right after this.
Miramax Films invites you to experience
Got a wicked child.
the courage,
Why should you punish her the way God made her?
the romance,
Do you think me handsome?
No, sir.
the passion,
I may be poor and plain, but I'm not without feelings.
and the mystery
Why did you come? Why on earth?
of one of the greatest love stories ever told.
I love you.
Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, rated PG.
Special sneak preview April 5th in select cities.
It's challenging. That's what I love about it. I trust my instincts.
It's different running your own business.
My work is everything. It's pure adrenaline.
Every decision comes down to you. It takes confidence. Gives me a sense of pride.
It calls on resources you never knew you had. Like the corporate card from American Express.
Call now and apply right over the phone.
Because control is in the details. You get quarterly reports by category.
Simplifies bookkeeping.
Small business savings, like 3% off mobile gas, 10% off UPS overnight delivery, up to 15% off Hertz, and up to 25% off Hilton hotels. Even accident disability insurance free.
That's important.
And we put your company's name on the card, because you are the company.
I like what it says
People
about it.
recognize it. It's the best card to have.
Every day, more than 1 million small business owners rely on the corporate card. See how it can help you.
It's hard to do business without it.
Call 1-800-SUCCESS now,
We'll take your application right over the phone.
because meeting the challenge is what you do best.
I wouldn't work this hard for anyone but me.
They say, surround yourself with Earth's forms and you'll find tranquility. In the presence of power, you'll achieve peace of mind. Remove yourself from chaos and you'll experience rejuvenation. Hence, our newest edition, Wide Open Spaces. Introducing the longer, roomier Jaguar Vanden Pla.
It takes this much paper to buy a printer or copier, and this much paper to stop it. Get Hammermill, the paper that works.
Secretary Ron Brown has been praised and panned for being the most traveled Commerce Secretary in any administration. Several top U.S. businessmen flew with him to Bosnia. Secretary Brown has a lot of big money-making friends, and that has sometimes left him with some controversial baggage. Our Brooks Jackson joins us with more on the money matters concerning Ron Brown. As we know, some of the allegations have been dismissed against the Secretary. There's a broader investigation that has been underway at the direction of Janet Reno and an independent counsel. What is the status of that investigation, Brooks?
Well, very much in doubt right now, Lou. This is unprecedented in the history of special prosecutors, independent counsels, to possibly, we must stress possibly, lose the focus of the investigation. What's a matter of record is this, that since July, an independent counsel, Daniel Pearson, a former judge from Miami, has been investigating primarily an allegation that, we know Secretary Brown received nearly $500,000 in payments for his stake in a company for which he had done no work and in which he had invested no money. There was suspicion or allegations that that money was actually in return for some sort of favors. As you pointed out, Janet Reno asked for the appointment of an independent counsel. One was appointed. And that investigation has been going on for some time. It's recently also a matter of record that the independent counsel expanded his investigation to cover a company in Oklahoma. Mr. Brown, Secretary Brown's son, Michael, had been appointed president of that company, and there was an allegation that that was in some way a favor or a quid pro quo. What happens now, if Secretary Brown is dead, and we don't know that, the investigation of him obviously is over. There would be, there are related investigations that the independent counsel is undertaking, and nobody really knows what would happen to those. As I say, this is an unprecedented situation. It is possible that some would simply be dismissed or closed. It is possible that some would be referred to the Justice Department or appropriate U.S. attorneys, and the independent counsel would fold up his tent and steal away. It is possible that the independent counsel would continue some of those related investigations himself.
Why, Brooks, was this recent investigation turned over to an independent counsel and not handled by the Justice Department like the others?
Well, actually, others are being handled by independent counsels. When allegations arise concerning high government officials, under terms of the independent counsel statute, it's felt that these should be handled independently of the Justice Department. The Justice Department, after all, is headed by a presidential appointee, Janet Reno.
So, indeed, if it is determined that Ron Brown has died, then the investigation is over?
The investigation of him, we don't know about investigations of persons who might be related to that investigation.
All right. Brooks Jackson in Washington. Thanks.
In Arkansas, prosecutors tried to build up their case against the Whitewater business partners of President Clinton. David Hale, a key prosecution witness, was back on the stand in Little Rock. Hale already has pleaded guilty in the case. The banker testified Bill Clinton was present at a key meeting of the Whitewater business partners. Yesterday, Hale testified that as Arkansas governor, Mr. Clinton was a direct beneficiary of an illegal loan in 1986. White House Press Secretary Mike McCurry says the president will have an opportunity to refute what he called these false allegations during videotaped testimony. And there's more ahead on Early Prime.
We will continue updating the stories we've been telling you about, and we'll go to Montana Live for the very latest on the standoff between the government and the free men.
And Stopping a Killer will tell you about new recommendations concerning cervical cancer.
Investment advice. Everybody wants the inside scoop. But chasing every tip will drive you crazy, and it won't make you rich. A consistent investment program will get you somewhere. Find out about Janus no-load mutual funds. Get the information you need to get where you want to go. Start to think big. Janus Funds.
I can't believe this has happened to me. I mean, the car tires are gone and the battery's
Everybody
gone.
goes through bad times. And you can see them change as you calm them down, or you explain something to them when maybe they were feeling in a position of powerlessness.
Robin, could you call a cab?
That's a great feeling. When something happens to somebody else, I want to give that back.
Thank you so much.
I think that's what this is all about, really.
Being in good hands is the only place to be.
AT&T and MCI and Sprint have chosen to bill you for your residential service in 1-minute increments. You use 2 minutes and 12 seconds, they charge you for 3. We don't do that at LCI. LCI charges in 6-second increments. Pick up the phone right now. Call us. Save yourself money.
Call now and switch your home long distance to LCI International, and you'll receive up to a $75 value in long distance services.
At LCI, you get what you pay for.
Load it up and have a ball. Pontiac Transport's got it all.
The roominess and convenience of flexible seating. Count 'em, 2 built-in child seats. Pontiac's exclusive power sliding door. Touch the button and let it slide. And the safety of standard airbag and anti-lock brakes.
Pontiac Transport, it's got it all.
Sunday on CNN Presents. 10 years after the world's worst nuclear accident, the effects of Chernobyl are just beginning to be understood. But as some people return to this region of the Ukraine, the threat of an even bigger disaster lies entombed under tons of concrete. Could Chernobyl be a nightmare waiting to happen again? Chernobyl, legacy of a meltdown. On the next CNN Presents, Sunday, 9 Eastern.
In Montana, the FBI is negotiating with that anti-government group called the Free Men, but there's no word on any progress, if any. It's day 10 of a standoff with the members of that separatist group. The FBI controls the only telephone line into the 900-acre ranch the Freemen call Justice Township. Authorities are refusing to permit calls they feel might aggravate the situation. A third Freemen member arrested last week was to go to court this afternoon in Billings, Montana. He's Richard Clark. He has a detention hearing scheduled for today. Even his attorneys doubt Clark will be freed on bail.
15 high-ranking retired military officers are supporting a worldwide ban on landmines. Retired General Norman Schwarzkopf is one of those who signed an open letter to President Clinton in today's New York Times. Landmines are cheap and very effective weapons, and they're being used more often in some of the world's remote corners in civil wars. Security forces all across Israel are on increased alert as the Passover holiday approaches. Special precautions are being taken in outdoor markets, bus stations, and supermarkets. The Israeli army is operating surprise roadblocks on the West Bank and along the borders of Jerusalem to try to stop any potential attackers. Militants in the Palestinian Hamas movement have said they plan more suicide attacks against the state of Israel. Individuals in Israel are being warned to be especially vigilant during Passover week, when most public activities come to a near standstill.
The latest now on that mad cow mess in Great Britain. In a bid to eradicate mad cow disease from its herds and shore up consumer confidence, the European Union has agreed on a sweeping action plan. Now, under the plan, British cattle over 30 months old will be slaughtered. The EU's worldwide ban on British beef exports will remain in place. The EU and the British government will share the cost of compensating farmers for the slaughter. And in a related development here in the United States, concern about mad cow disease may prompt the FDA to rewrite its rules governing dietary supplements and cosmetics. Now, many of those items, as you may know, contain beef protein or hormonal extracts from cows, but they are not as tightly regulated at this time.
Cervical cancer kills 5,000 women a year in the United States. Scientists suspect it is often the result of sexual activity, and there are ways women can both prevent it or at least make sure they don't die from it. CNN's Eugenia Halsey explains in Your Prime Health Report.
3 months ago, 31-year-old Valerie Paterno found out through a routine pap smear she had cervical cancer. The treatment, a radical hysterectomy, and today she is alive. Now she encourages other women to have regular pap smears.
It is not something that you put off. It's not a fun thing to do, but it's not a bad thing to do. And it saved my life. It could save yours.
Doctors say saving lives requires early detection.
The key is going to be making sure that all women have access to medical care, access to the medical system where they can then enter into these screening programs.
An expert panel convened by the National Institutes of Health agrees. It says more widespread pap smears, especially among the economically disadvantaged, such as minorities, older women, the rural, and the poor, could wipe out the disease.
In theory, cervical cancer should be one of the cancers that we can completely prevent.
Since the introduction of the pap test 50 years ago, there's been a steep decline in cervical cancer in the United States. Nevertheless, there are still 15,000 new cases a year and nearly 5,000 deaths. The panel says half of all women diagnosed with cervical cancer have never had a pap smear, and another 10% have not been tested in the past 5 years. The panel says a principal cause of cervical cancer is the human papillomavirus, or HPV, which is transmitted sexually. For that reason, it's important to discourage early sexual intercourse among adolescents and to encourage the use of condoms. Doctors say 70 to 85% of cervical cancers can be cured if detected early. As for treatment, the panel recommends surgery or radiation therapy if the cancer hasn't spread beyond the cervix. For more advanced cervical cancer, it says radiation is the treatment of choice. Eugenia Halsey, CNN, Washington.
Just think, a whole week at the lake.
And it's allergy season.
All that fishing.
All that ragweed.
Spring in the air.
Water in my eyes.
Awake with the sun.
Awake with sinus pain.
Need strong relief that's better than the allergy medicine doctors have prescribed most? Then try Tylenol Allergy Sinus.
Hey, maybe we can stay an extra week.
Tylenol Allergy Sinus. Powerful relief without a prescription.
Updating you again on our top story, a member of the Clinton cabinet, Commerce Secretary Ron Brown, is missing in a plane crash in the Balkans. The Pentagon says it has no confirmed reports of fatalities or survivors at the crash site in Croatia. Earlier, White House officials said 4 bodies had been recovered from the site, all bodies unidentified. According to the Pentagon and several news services, there are reports of a possible survivor, possibly a woman. Earlier, Mr. Clinton and the First Lady, both clearly shaken, went to the Brown home in Washington to visit with Ron Brown's wife, Alma. Mr. Clinton later spoke with employees at the Commerce Department. Ron Brown was on an official visit to drum up business in former Yugoslavia. In addition to Brown, several high-level U.S. business executives were on the plane. The Pentagon says a total of 33 people, 27 passengers and 6 crew were on the Air Force T-43. Earlier, an unnamed Pentagon official put the chances of anyone surviving the crash at slim to none. The plane, the T-43, was a military version of Boeing 737. It flew this morning from the Bosnian town of Tuzla. It was to take the Brown delegation to the Croatian coastal town Dubrovnik. U.S. officials tell CNN the plane crashed into a mountain near Dubrovnik. The officials say the weather at the time of the crash was very bad. There is no indication of any hostile action. U.S., French, and Croatian military teams launched search and rescue operations over land and water. The Pentagon says Croatian teams have reached the crash site. An official says U.S. teams are on the way. He says bad weather prevented an attempted aerial landing at the site. And we'll be right back.
Investment advice. Everybody wants the inside scoop. But chasing every tip will drive you crazy, and it won't make you rich. A consistent investment program will get you somewhere. Find out about Janus no-load mutual funds. Get the information you need to get where you want to go. Start to think big. Janus Funds.
There are so many reasons to choose home care from Kelly Assisted Living. The care, the companionship, dependability, flexibility, trust, and the low cost. If you currently receive home care or are considering it, you owe it to yourself to find out about Kelly Assisted Living. With so many reasons to choose Kelly, there's just no reason not to.
For more information, call Kelly Assisted Living at 1-800-YES-KELLY.
The stories, the reporters, the program. CNN presents the weekly news documentary, a full hour devoted to in-depth coverage of a single issue, with a worldwide team of investigative reporters and the time to cover the story right. 1 hour, one topic, one network. CNN presents, Sunday, 9 Eastern.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We have been telling you about our other major story of the day, a possible breakthrough in the Unabomber story. Had told you that law enforcement officials were searching a home in Lincoln, Montana, but we did not know the whereabouts of the possible suspect that could be the Unabomber. Just reading off the CNN information now from my computer, the latest information we have is that the suspect has not been formally arrested, but taken into custody when he would reportedly not let the FBI search his home. He reportedly resisted an effort for FBI officials to search his home there in Lincoln, Montana. So that person has been taken into custody, not formally arrested, but as we've been telling you, possible breakthrough in the Unabomber story today as investigators search a home of a person they believe could be the person responsible for killing 3 people, injuring more than 20 over the past 18 years in mail bombs. We'll keep you posted on any more developments.
And we will continue our coverage of the Ron Brown story, the plane crash in the Adriatic off Dubrovnik as the evening progresses here. That's it for us. That's Early Prime. I'm Lou Waters.
I'm Natalie Allen. Thanks for joining us.
Showbiz Today is next.
Tonight, brutality on the beat and the crossfire. Is this a rare case of excessive force or law enforcement business as usual? Tonight, 7:30 Eastern on CNN.